Move it over.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of 10 Questions in 10 Minutes, the live stream series produced by MoCDA, Museum of Contemporary Digital Art, in collaboration with SuperRare. My name is Filippo, and today I'm with a Brooklyn-based digital mixed media artist whose influences are as diverse as Buddhist art, Jungian archetypes, and surrealism. She once said that one of her dreams is that digital art will make art accessible to many more people than today, and that visual art will be more like music, appreciated by almost everyone. Please welcome Anne Spalter. Thanks for joining me, Anne. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much, Filippo and Serena behind the scenes.
That's brilliant. So as I said, it will be 10 questions in 10 minutes, so it's probably a good idea to start. How did you get interested in crypto art?
I actually was invited to be on 2 different panels discussing crypto art and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, for people who don't know what that is, just tokenized objects that are not interchangeable. So artworks, unlike Bitcoin, like Bitcoins or other just currency amounts. And I didn't know that much about it, so I started reading about it, and then I thought, if I'm going to really have an opinion about this, I should put my money where my mouth is and create some NFTs and see what the whole experience is like. And I just really loved it, and I love the whole community and the concepts behind it.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's a very interesting community because I suppose that the last few months, so, an increase of interest in crypto art, isn't it? So what jobs have you done other than being an artist? Did they influence the way you make art now?
Yes, and the one that influenced me the most was I was teaching at Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design, but I ended up working in the computer science department for the Brown University Computer Graphics Research Group. And I was an artist in residence and visual computing researcher. And it was like an amazing internship, personalized PhD program in which I really learned the craft of my field, the concepts behind computer graphics, who had created them, why they worked the way they did. And it helped me in my artistic endeavors after that.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
And I wrote a book called The Computer and the Visual Arts. So having access to all that expertise at that time was also invaluable.
Of course. Speaking of which, some of your most famous works are large-scale public installations. Do you approach such projects in a different way than what you would do with a smaller scale digital work?
Yes, and they all follow the same stages, even though each project has been very different in its outcome. And they begin the same way as studio work, with some sort of idea, and usually it's a response to a call or an art fair theme, and then also responding to the space that the work is going to be in, because they're all very site specific. So starting getting ideas together and working with the whatever visuals I have on the computer, that part's all kind of the same. And then instead of printing it out, there's some enormous physical thing that has to be installed. And I work with a studio manager, Phil Shaw, who is a Photoshop whiz, and he makes these amazing mock-ups where I feel like the project's pretty much completed. There it is. It looks fabulous. And it always seems like it will be pretty easy to install it, and that we've anticipated everything. And then comes the moment where under deadline, you have to go to a different city, deal with materials that you've never used before, deal with fabricators. And there's always several days of crisis and very high levels of anxiety.
Of course.
And at which I think this is insane and it's not going to happen, and I need to somehow get out of this and explain to people why it just won't work. And then a few days later, it actually gets installed. And no matter how many projects I do, they all go through all of those stages.
Yeah, that's the magic of art making, I suppose.
Yeah, but when you're working in a huge space, I did one in Brooklyn that was 8,000 square feet. It's the potential for it to go horribly wrong seems greater when you're just printing out work at home.
Yeah. Your use of AI to generate animation, starting from a set of photographs of pictures depicting the same things, seems to me that they mirror the Jungian archetypes. So, for example, your work "Shifting Signals" is a video based on a set of lighthouse photographs. Can you please tell me how you see the relationship between spiritual and digital?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that there's been a connection with spirituality and digital art from the very beginning of the field, where a lot of the pioneers, it turns out, were very interested in Eastern religions. And I think the process of doing digital art, especially in the early days, was very sometimes tedious but meditative. One's like a lot of steps repeated one after another, making a pattern, something abstract or representation.
Mhm.
So I think there's that sort of part of the field from the start. And then for me, it's a combination in this piece of the iconography and what it means to me, which I know we're going to get to in a minute, and the process, which I think if spirituality is sort of something greater than yourself, or, being part of something beyond yourself, using the artificial intelligence algorithms to put things together is like a whole different world. So it's like some sort of weird other subconscious, unconscious mind that's working on them. And so to me, it's sort of a communal spiritual space.
That's great. Speaking of which, we asked our followers what questions they had for you, and Pindar asked on Twitter, and I'm going to quote him, when did you first get interested in using the imagery of lighthouses? Recently, a bit ago, or all your life? And also, can you go more in depth as to why?
Um, Throughout my work for many decades, there's just been a pretty consistent set of imagery and icons, and lighthouses have been one of them. So they've been in my work for several decades, and they began, I'd say, in Rhode Island, because I went kayaking and around a lighthouse that was very beautiful. I have a lot of water in my work, so it seemed like I don't know, a symbol that always interested me. And then in 2018, I did a project, part of a group show called Welcome Warning, in which I created a very large video sculpture,
Mhm.
and it was in the form of a lighthouse, kind of an abstract lighthouse. And I became really interested in that idea of the lighthouse as something welcoming, because it indicates, that there's a shoreline, which maybe you're on a ship, you wanted to be approaching that place. And
Mhm.
also some sort of warning, because they only put lighthouses up if there's rocks or something dangerous about that area. So
Mhm.
I like that ambiguity of it, and also its use as a signaling
Yeah.
device. So I've been working on a series of things I call beacons, which are
Mhm.
sort of concentric circles where just some sort of visual message, not exactly clear what it is being communicated, from some mysterious place.
Yeah.
And I think the lighthouse does that as well, because it's sending out this light. It's like it's telling you something.
Absolutely. Um, your interest in surrealism and expertise in digital art reminded me of a quote I've read a while ago about Sonia Delaunay, the surrealist artist who was also the wife of surrealist painter Robert Delaunay. It was difficult for her to be recognized as a professional artist because she wasn't allowed to use traditional media such as painting or sculpture. So, she had to work with textiles. And the fact she used a media that was not recognized as artistic, if you know what I mean, meant that critics at the time didn't take her works seriously. Do you think something similar happened with digital art?
I love this question on many levels. I think women have been involved in digital art from the very beginning. And one of the reasons is that it was a new territory.
Mhm.
So they didn't have to compete with something that was maybe male dominated already, but also is sort of been on the side and apart from the traditional art world. So there have been both of those things going on. One of my favorite digital artists is a woman named Vera Molnar, who's now
Mhm.
96, and she does traditional and digital work and has been doing it forever. And I think kind of emblematic of that, her husband worked for a company that had a computer, a large scale, beast in the 60s. And the only way she could get access to it was during the 1968 student riots in Paris. No one would work at the company, and she went in and could use the computer. And her mentor when she arrived from Hungary to Paris was Sonia Delaunay, who went under her wing and encouraged her art making. So I think that that goes back to maybe the community, in that case, a community of women. But digital art world, I think it's a very friendly place, and people are supportive of each other. And it's one of the really great, nice things about being a digital artist.
Absolutely, I think you're right. Cities of the Past and Future is a work where we see an AI-generated landscape where nature seems at peace. A flock of birds fly high in the sky, colorful fish swim deep in the sea, and a rainbow appears on a beautiful waterfall. This landscape represents a hope for a better world. So what role do you think machines will play in the way humans plan their future? It's a very long question.
Yeah, and in this work, the whole sort of city landscape part was made with artificial intelligence. And I think that's also really the answer to your question. I think the AI is growing by leaps and bounds, and it not only is helping predict things for the future, but actually creating and forming the future.
That's brilliant. Your works are not meant to be defined by the tools you use to make them. In a sort of post-media museum of the future, where paintings, sculptures, AR environments, and sound art installations are on display in the same space depending on themes rather than media, which artist would you like to have on display in your room?
Okay, I love this question too, and I hope that you curate a show that by themes instead of by medium, because I think the digital art world needs more of that. But I love the Yves Tanguay and Bridget Riley suggested, who I thought were great. And maybe also some colorists like Hans Hofmann and Ozan Redan, who I love with his pastels. I do a lot of pastel drawing.
I can see that, yes.
I also am a fan of artists who depict technological landscapes. There's a painter, Samantha Fields, whose work I love, and Esther Pearl Watson, who paints UFOs all the time. Definitely resonate with her work. On more well-known people, I think Takiriko, with this sort of like haunting feeling of his landscapes, and Charles Sheeler was my other one for his factories.
That sounds like an amazing exhibition space to me. We definitely have to do it. So, next time, I think we should plan something here. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
All right, this one I really struggled with, and I think the best piece of advice really that someone gave me, who was an administrator at Brown University, who has since passed away, but I got invited to go to Apple Computer, and I had just started teaching at Brown, and I asked him, what's the protocol for asking for free equipment, because I really needed an upgrade to my computer. And he said, you know what, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And I put that into action on my visit, and I ended up with both a desktop and a laptop computer. And it's really been invaluable advice for the rest of my life. So I just wish I had heard it earlier.
I think that's definitely, it's very true. Definitely. I can think about many examples of when that advice could be applied. So last question. What is the question you always wanted to answer, but nobody ever asked you?
I think it's a great question, but I got to tell you, I have no idea. And I really thought about it. So I'm sorry, but I just don't have.
You like to be surprised. Oh,
you asked good questions. So.
Thank you. So I can see we already at 14 minutes here. So thank you, Anne, for joining us. That was an amazing interview. It was great to have you with us. Do you want to say anything to our public, by the way?
Thanks for listening. Do creative stuff. Tune back in for more of these.
That's amazing. So thanks again. See you all the next time. Ciao, ciao.